the Climate Change CDC. So first meeting back after Christmas. Merry Christmas, everyone. Hope you had a great New Year. I suppose we'll just get straight to it. So item 1 on the agenda then is, have we had any apologies for absence?
Yeah, apologies from Councillors David Phillips and Andrea Lewis.
Okay. Second item on the agenda then is, do we have any disclosures of personal and prejudicial interests? None? Okay. Third item then is to approve the minutes. So if we can have someone to first approve the minutes, that would be great. Anyone?
Yeah.
Oh, you coughed there, Ryland, so I wasn't sure if that was a yes or a no.
Yes.
There we are. So thank you. Can then somebody second, please? Sarah, thank you very much. And then just all in favour? Yeah, just wave your hands. Brilliant. Thank you. So we go straight to item 4 then, which is renewable energy. So our lead officer, Jeff Bacon, is going to provide us with, I suppose, a progress update on the new energy generation policy. So just hopefully you've all had a bit of a chance to go through that, the policy that was attached to the agenda, because views of the CDC are going to be sought at the end in relation to so issues of council policy and potential changes, I believe, was on there, and then local community views and consultation. So I'll hand straight over to you, Jeff, if you can give us a quick update on that.
Sure. Thanks, Kelly. Thanks, Chair. We're conscious, and we had a meeting with Kelly a few days ago, that a lot of the reports we've been bringing so far have been position statements, and it might have felt like we've been broadcasting a fair amount in terms of where we are on a lot of the existing policies and strategies that relate to climate change, net zero, and nature recovery. And this report is a lot briefer than previous reports, because effectively we are starting a journey when it comes to our renewable energy strategy. So we are very much looking to CDC to help give us some assistance in terms of where they think there may be gaps, where they think we need some form of direction travel. And this won't be a one and done. We'll be coming back to you over the next few months, which will become evident when I briefly go through the report when it comes to the development of the local area energy plan. We've given a brief introduction. Hopefully you'll all be well aware of the fact that it is critical to remove the dependency on fossil fuels, whether that be in relation to the generation of renewable energy as it sits with us with regards to our own sites for our own consumption, which is very much related to our 2030 target, or in relation to the decarbonisation or the greening of the wider grid, which is very much an 2050 target. And that's what the local area energy plan is very much driving towards. We've mentioned the fact we've had considerable support from Welsh Government Energy Services, who've been incredibly helpful. They are a free service. And I mention that specifically because there may be some community schemes that you may be aware of, or you may want some support from Welsh Government Energy Services in particular. There was one that was referenced in particular in Bonham Mine. So I just wanted to put that out there because that is a free service available to all, and they are a very useful and very helpful service to support us all. The local area energy plan, I always stumble on that. It's quite a difficult thing to get up. But we call them LEAPs, even though it's not strictly speaking how they're spelled. But the LEAPs are our next major step when it comes to informing future strategy. And the CDC are going to be a critical stakeholder. There'll be a huge amount of stakeholder engagement, not just within the council, but within the wider public and private sector. And we see CDC as being an important element of that. It's about decarbonising our energy systems, and it will eventually, I think probably driving towards the end of this year, probably going into next year, delivering on a costed and spatial plan for all of Swansea, talking about electricity, heat and gas networks. There have been appointed consultants funded by Welsh Government on a regional basis, and for our region, it's a company called City Science, and we have a kick-off mobilisation meeting with them next Friday. No, the 20th. Is that this Friday? This Friday. They've moved it forward a week. So we're going to start in earnest talking to them about how they want to engage with us. There'll be large expectation on the authority in terms of helping to give them lots of information. And as we keep on saying throughout any of these briefings, we're struggling with resource, so we'll help them as best we possibly can. But hopefully they'll be assisting us greatly in terms of taking that strategy forward. But it is, as I said, very much a 2050 target. In the interim, linked into our 2030 net zero delivery plan, we will continue to concentrate on some of the specific projects that we've mentioned in this report, which is to do with refit, which is an interest-free loan arrangement. We're in the second phase of refit. This is to do with how we can actually reduce energy consumption on our public building stock. There will undoubtedly be renewables within those proposals. And because of the cost of energy and the massive increase in tariffs, we would probably expect there will be a lot more in that programme that will enable us to actually get more done based on this interest-free arrangement over, I think it's an 8-year 8-year payback business case. That's important. That was mentioned specifically on our 2030 delivery plan, you may recall. We have a 2.4 megawatt solar farm. Proposals are continuing to be considered, and hopefully we'll have a further report in due course to update on progress. We're looking at the potential for wind farms, for example. Current policy in planning policy sets out potential sites. We've worked with Welsh Government Energy Services about potential wind farms in the Swansea location. And of course, we have the well-publicised Tidal Lagoon Blue Eden project. Fully expected to be a report coming forward to Cabinet about current status and hopefully way forward on the Blue Eden project, February or potentially March, but hopefully relatively quickly, because there's been some quite well-formed and advanced discussions with the potential developer to take that site forward. I have specifically set out 2 questions. That's not an exclusive list of questions. There could be more, but that's why I want to see if we can possibly energise some discussion within this group. Do you have a view on council policy, whether it be planning policy, whether it be investment on development and any potential changes? And probably more specifically, because it can be a contentious issue, the renewable energy, any views on what your local community may consider to be acceptable or not, whether they're going to be amenable to potential development in their nearby neighbourhood, and how we would deal with issues of consultation and how to actually make better use of local public consultation about these as proposals. So I'll leave it at that. As I say, it is a brief report. I'm hoping that we'll have some further discussion. Welcome any potential suggestions, proposals. I'm by far an expert on this particular subject matter. Hopefully City Science will be helpful to us going forward in terms of informing, and I fully expect to come back with them, hopefully informed by discussions today, to say where we think we might be going. Kelly, is that okay?
Sorry, yeah, there's always a little delay when I turn my mic back on, so
Okay.
I might be silent, but I'm definitely trying to jump in. So a couple of hands have gone up. I'll go straight to the floor then. I think Councillor Stewart, Rice, you were first. So.
Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Jeff. I just got a couple of points there. To take the first question in terms of is it policy? What should we do in terms of planning guidance? I definitely think there's an opportunity for special planning guidance in terms of energy. And there's a couple of things I'd like to see us do internally as well in terms of when we do reporting. If it comes to any estates matters which go to Cabinet and then on to Council, for example, purchase of a building, refitting of a building, as we have an impact assessment written in there, I think when it comes to any corporate property related issues and any purchases, we should be looking to put in a subsection there where we look through opportunities for micro generation, energy efficiency in any refits, and almost like a hurdle that we look at, not a hurdle, or a way which we look at each policy that's going through, or purchase, acquisition, or capital investment. I think that definitely would be a good thing to be looking at. And looking at opportunities for micro generation. It's like, for example, the arena's a great new facility on the seafront, massive top to it, but I don't think there's any solar on the top of it.
There is.
Is there? Oh, is there?
There are PVs on the top of the roof, yeah.
There is there? Okay,
Yep.
Right. But I stand corrected on that one then. Great. That's good news. But it's just looking at each of those opportunities. And I certainly think when we look at things like Tier John, when we've got a very big farm plan, which is great, I think it's a good thing. When we're looking at the batteries for storing energy and to be able to look at that, I think it'd be good to look at some of the new technology that's coming through. rather than using all of the precious and rare metals that there are in batteries, things which are very difficult to get rid of after the life of the battery. We should be looking at some of the more modern technology, like in Finland, where they're using sand batteries and other things which actually keep heat and keep energy for longer periods. I think that would be definitely something worth considering going forward. And yeah, I'm fully behind any other areas of microgeneration. I think the people in the uplands are pretty keen on it. And I think across the city, it's just having a mind for some of the wind turbine issues. But I think they've got probably smaller as a group of people who are concerned about them now. That's me finished.
Yeah, it's a lot there. Thank you.
Right, thank you, Councillor Rice. So, Sarah, you've got your hand up as well. Do you want to come in?
Yes, I have. One of the things, it was a question, Jeff, when you're talking about refitting council buildings, will you be refitting, future-proofing things like community centres and libraries as well, so that they're cheaper to run and more economical?
And yes, exactly. And schools.
Schools.
The first phase of refit had a very distinct and specific list of assets, and I don't think it was complete. Because it was based on what was considered to be opportunities at that time. In order to accelerate phase 2, we've continued with that list, and there were some gaps, and that will include some of the school premises in particular. At the top of my head, I don't know if it includes community centres, but we will have to go out to procurement for phase 3. That will be twin track. That will happen during the course of this year. So we will capture every single council asset, and if community buildings aren't included in phase 2, they will definitely be mopped up in phase 3.
That's great.
Where we will have to, probably the reasons why the schools were included in phase 1, because it was pretty much low hanging fruit. Lots of LEDs. There was lots of I think we only spent about 1.5 million, because it was more difficult to substantiate a business case. As I said before, we're expecting to spend a lot more, and we've already done that first phase analysis to inform that 2030 delivery plan, which we think will probably generate something in the region of about £7 or £8 million worth of spend, which will give us something like, Rachel may recall, was it 4,000 tonnes, Rachel? That could be complete nonsense, so we might ignore that. But I think we're going to get a better benefit this time round, which will include a lot of the schools. We will have to have discussions with schools about how we actually fund that, because it's an interest-free loan, but it's funded by savings that we're all going to make on our utility bills. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. Go on, sorry. Yes, we'll include all council assets within that phase 3.
Was about, I was quite concerned. We were really concerned about how we heat homes in the winter, but it's going to kill more people if we don't keep them cool in the summer and without air conditioning. Is there any sort of science thing with the ground source heat pumps that have been put in that they could reverse to cool the rooms in the summer? Is there any sort of science out there to help us with that we could do it? Because, we're doing up all these houses.
That question, yeah,
Okay.
that is a very good question. I don't know whether I might pass on to the director of place, who may know more when it comes to what's been looked at in terms of the council buildings. I actually fully expect the whole point of passive and the less intensive when it comes to energy consumption environments is the fact you keep a constant. So I imagine it's going to be passive cooling, and it's having insulation, which basically stops the house getting too hot, too cold, but also stops it getting too cold. So just making sure there's less intervention when it comes to anything which is actually going to be sucking on power, whether it be renewable power or whether it be power off the grid. So I think I imagine that's the expectation. It's fabric first, I think, is the way they describe it. Yes, absolutely right.
Right, thank you. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. So I do have a couple of questions as well, Jeff. I went off for a moment there when we were talking about the LAEP that you're calling LEAP.
LEAP, yeah, call it LEAP. Yeah. LEAP, we call it LEAP.
We call it LEAP. So you mentioned City Science. Did you say their first meeting on Friday? Is that right? Did I catch that right?
It's a regional mobilisation. So they'll basically set out, I imagine, for all the regions, us, Carmarthen, Shanith, Talbot, and I think Pembrokeshire, but Pembrokeshire are probably early doors. They've already written there. So it's definitely us, Carmarthen, Shanith, Talbot. And they'll be setting out exactly what they're going to expect from us. I think every authority, they know enough about each authority to know that we're not going to be treated the same, but the general principles will be very similar. the whole purpose of this is it's a regional approach.
Yeah.
You know, they can't expect Swansea just to green the grid. It's got to be us as a combination. And what's evident is there is a very good regional approach. Something that I haven't seen before in my 30 years of local authority working is we are working regionally. We see there is a bigger picture. We have to demonstrate how to work across boundaries. Hence the reason why you have one appointment that was basically decided upon by Welsh Government, and we have to go with it, which is fine. It'll be great to see how they come in and look at some of the specifics. They appear to be very much engineering and technically based, which I think is probably needed.
Yeah. So a couple of specific questions. Sorry if you might not know the answer to this, considering the first
Probably
going
not.
to be meeting on Friday. But the first one was then, so obviously in the report you mentioned that they're first going to talk about governance and oversight, and then obviously we will become stakeholders as part of what it is that they've created. Then, and just wondering if you have any sort of a time frame as to when that might be, when we will become a bit more involved as a CDC.
It'll be during the course of this year. I probably imagine it's probably going to be towards the summer, but that is a guess, and I think I'll raise that specifically on Friday just to see that they have to respect the fact that we're a political organisations and the political interface is going to be very important. So I'm sure they're not blind to that fact. So I'll raise that specifically and I'll feedback at the next meeting.
Perfect. So that'll be helpful for us when we start forming our work plan,
program.
obviously, for the next year.
Sure.
The other one then is if you could also ask as well if there will be specifics, I suppose, as to who's going to form part of the other stakeholders, because as you're aware, you know, I was contacted last week by a new research network that's been established at Swansea Uni, for example, and I'm just wondering if if City Science are going to branch out and offer, different research networks in addition to what you've mentioned there, the opportunity maybe to form part of that stakeholder group.
Yeah.
I just thought maybe, if the research is being done and these networks are being created, maybe we could just bring them all together. That might be a good idea.
Yeah, good point.
Perfect. Ryland, do you have a question?
Yeah, one sort of question and one sort of observation on the issue about consultation with communities, etc. Sorry, the question is related to if there's going to be a scheme at some point to put things like PV panels on the roof of council houses, will there be a scheme which would offer the same work to houses in the same street which have been bought? Because in the past we've had issues in Llansamned where you're doing things like kitchens and all that sort of stuff, and there's workmen in the street, but obviously the work is only going on in the council houses, and the people who are have bought their council houses are, if you like, outside the scheme. And it would seem to me sensible, if you're going to do the work in the street, to do something like put PV panels on the roof of council houses to at least offer the same type of work, even if the residents have to pay for it themselves, to the non-council householders in the street, non-council house tenants in the street. The other sort of observation is in relation to consultations with areas where you're going to do some sort of micro generation work. We've got a scheme going on in Gleis at the moment, which is a private sector scheme to put a solar farm on the top of Drummer Mountain, and that's been quite poorly sort of publicised by the company that's doing the sort of work at the moment. And I would say that if we consider doing anything like that, we should have the maximum type of consultation possible, with really extensive amounts of information available. And I think one issue which this company has handled quite badly is the issue of, is there a community benefit to having 50,000 of these panels on the top of the mountain? And at the moment, they're not, because obviously it's not in their interests to develop Section 106 type agreements. They'd be quite happy not to have them. And the community's attitude at the moment is, we don't want this thing on the top of the mountain, and any sort of Section 106 type benefit is being seen as a bribe. So they are saying, we don't want it. Now, there's a balance to be struck here, because this company is going to make a lot of money from this facility, and I think that some of that money should go back into the local community, and the community is going to lose out if they just say no to any sort of Section 106 agreement. And as I said, the company that's putting this scheme forward is going to laugh all the way to the bank if they're not able to, if they don't have to put anything in the local community. So I think that we need to A, consult substantially in the areas where we might do something, and B, we need to include community benefit as part of the offer to the local areas.
Do you
Okay,
want
thank
me
you.
to come back on that? I know Councillor Hopkins has
I was
raised his
just about
hand.
to say, I know Councillor Rice, I know you put your hand up first, but I'm wondering, Councillor Hopkins, if you wanted to respond directly there. You're on mute there. David.
Thanks, Chair. Sorry. Can I firstly apologise for my being late? I got stuck in traffic coming over from the Guildhall. Apologise. Sooner climate change we can sort that out, the better. But anyway, can I, on the first point, particularly council homes, and what we have done previously is where we've done major schemes of refurbishment of external window waterproofing, we have given people a chance to buy in and purchase it. Don't see this being any different, but it's the affordability of it as well, because obviously HRA could not subsidise anything that goes on in the private tenant's house. It's obviously ring fence, rightly so. So there probably will be the opportunity, but as I say, it will be expensive. On your last point, a bit concerned, because could this be a live planning application that's going to come in front of us shortly? If it is a live plan application, I would suggest nobody who sits on planning should take part in the discussion of whether there should be a 106 on the solar farm or not. I'm not sure, is it a live application at the moment, Ryland?
No, they're taking pre-application consultations, I suppose you could say, with an application which might emerge later in the year. Okay.
Just an air of caution, if somebody is on planning, don't get caught up in the debate, please. It's but right. I think the principle of this, right, was when you look at what went on in Pontydice and Pontnew regarding the wind turbines there, huge amount of opposition. Also, all I say is be careful that, you know, we shouldn't be discussing any planning application at this point now, personally.
Thank you, Councillor Hopkins. I saw a couple of hands jump up then. I'm just wondering if it's on the same point and topic. I'll bring you in. Hopefully, Councillor Rice, again, you don't mind me putting you to the bottom of the pile there. So I think Jeff and Jonathan, you put your hands up. Is it to do with the same point? So I'm happy to bring you in.
I'll defer to my legal colleague who will probably speak a lot more sense to me in terms of specifics. So, and then I'll come back on some of the wider issues that Ryland picked up on.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I was just going to pick up really on what Councillor Hopkins just said. Councillor Keaton is on the planning committee, but members are allowed to express an opinion on these matters and take part in the debate, as long as they haven't predetermined any planning application that comes forward. As long as members have got an open mind up until the matters being determined by planning committee, then members can express a view and take part in the debate, as long as they are clear that they haven't made their mind up yet until they see the full application and hear all the arguments from the various groups. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Jonathan. Jeff, did you want to come back in then?
Yeah, a couple of things really. I mean, both of the points that Ryland was talking about were very much linked into the LEAP policy in terms of the 2050 agenda. As Councillor Hopkins rightly said, when you're dealing with council houses, that's very much in our own gift, and that's something that we will, colleagues in housing will be dealing with. But again, in actual fact, the consumption of energy through council housing tenants is also a 2050 agenda, but it's one that we have some control over to an extent. When it comes to the wider issue of how much energy is likely to be consumed from private homes, that's something that will be calculated as part of the LEAP, and will identify the challenge that faces all of us when it comes to how to get Swansea as a whole to net zero by 2050. How that's dealt with, as I said before, this is a regional approach, will be something that will be fed back within the region and straight back to Welsh Government to say, if you're going to deal with this, you need to make X amount of millions available so that you've got the ability for private homeowners to invest, and to invest on the basis that it makes sense for them. Ignoring the greater good, everyone's going to be considering about, well, but how much is it going to cost me to do it and when's my payback going to be? So it will inform that process. Similarly with the issue of a solar farm in a community, there won't be a direct benefit unless there is a direct why. You can have a community scheme for a wind farm has been discussed elsewhere, or even a community scheme for a solar farm where you have a direct benefit because the community is actually paying for it and also reaping the commercial benefits that will likely exist. But the benefit is to the region and to the nation, isn't it? The whole point is it's greening the grid. So it won't be a direct benefit to any particular community, but if we all have green electricity and we are relying on new renewables within all of Wales, then that's the benefit to all of us. If there is a disadvantage to a community, then clearly there needs to be a reaction to that, and that will either be through Section 106 contribution or other community benefits as part of a wider discussion. As the consultation that's been talked about now is at a sort of a pre-app stage, which is sort of part of the statutory process, it's early days, isn't it? And so it might not seem like there's a lot of consultation. I'm defending them. I don't know anything about the scheme, but it might not seem like a lot of consultation, but it is very much at an early stage. I would probably expect us in this group to consider, okay, how do we deal with this as part of planning policy? How do we make a presumption that we would say, yeah, we need to support these sorts of proposals because there is a much wider benefit? And that'll be a challenge because we'll all be saying within our own communities, you can expect this to happen, even though you may not necessarily want it to happen in your particular location, because it is very much, it's physically dictated, isn't it? You're not going to have a lot of wind farms in the uplands here, or large solar farms in the uplands. That's why Councillor Rice is quite keen for them to happen, because they won't be on his doorstep, will they? But this is what we need. We need to have a wider discussion here and see what we think we can do that's going to be something that's agreeable to this group and that will become a policy recommendation going forward. Yeah.
Yep. Oh, thank you for that, Jeff. So, been waiting patiently there, Councillor Rice, so I'll bring you in now.
Thank you. Just a couple of quick ones. You mentioned about research from Swansea University, which is great, and research groups. I don't know if you guys remember, pre-Christmas, there was a report out from Warwick University, which did a full evaluation of Swansea and its energy use and its suggested reductions in terms of energy efficiency. So I don't know if, have you seen that one, Jeff?
It's not something that rings a bell. Warwick have done it on Swansea, have they?
Yeah, specifically on Swansea, and given a full evaluation of how to sort of cut it down. But we'll have a look at that one. You mentioned as well, Jeff, about the 8-year payback through the Welsh Government scheme.
Yeah, the refit scheme.
Yeah, one of the things I'm really keen to see happen, I know that we've put quite a substantial amount of money aside for energy protection in the proposals for the budget that's coming up, because obviously we're trying to cushion the blow of any increased prices, even though we now can see that the prices may not be as high as we expected with the drop in of the gas prices that are coming through. Has any evaluation been done or any money put aside yet? I know something that Councillor Hopkins and I spoke about before, for an investor save internal pot rather than just Welsh Government?
No, it hasn't as yet. I mean, because we go through the refit process first, because what happens, there is it's a deeper dive in terms of the energy consumption for the authority, which is basically undertaken by, they do a high level assessment by the current contractors. So that's a free piece of work. Let them go off and do it. If you've got the ability to tap into effectively interest-free money, we start with that.
Yeah.
What we did in the 2030 proposal was look at what a broad estimate of what it would actually take to invest in reducing by about 80% the remainder of our consumption on our whole estate. And if you may recall, it was a big figure. It was a very, very big figure. It's something that, to be fair, the Director of Finance Section 151 officer made a very clear comment about, in terms of that money basically won't be available. We have to look at it from other sources, and so we'll start to inform that more detailed delivery plan with the LEAP with the first phase of refit, and with some additional work we're doing now in terms of some of our other estates to see basically what we think a more accurate figure will be, because that was very much a broad estimate, as accurate as we possibly could have provided at the time. But that will inform the process going forward. This is a relatively, it's only up to 2030, but it's still a relatively long journey in terms of actually fulfilling the promise of actually getting to net zero by that date. But we'll do what we can do based on the available finance, and it will be daft to sort of shift resource away from what's available from interest-free provision.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think there's an issue there in the sense that where we look at energy efficiency, and obviously we need to cushion people's blow of their additional costs within the year ahead. There needs to be also some sort of incentive, especially for people who aren't directly in charge of those monies, to become more energy efficiency at source, either in behaviour or actually in intervention. So my concern is if we put 12 or 16 million pounds into paying people's bills, there's no incentive to try and become energy efficiency for the organisation. Yeah,
absolutely. I think there was a big education piece here that's been picked up by colleagues in the team about understanding that, again, it is for the greater good. We've invested some money in terms of energy sparks, going around to the schools to talk about improved management on the ground, which is undoubtedly going to see some benefits, and we'll see benefits above and beyond what it's actually cost us to actually get energy sparks to go out there and deal with the education side of things. And we're working now with a piece with regards to premises managers in relation to almost like we're talking about a climate contract. This is what we're going to be doing in the corporate centre. You don't pay the bills, but recognise the fact that we're doing this again for the greater good. These are some very easy housekeeping exercises that you should be looking to do in terms of basic stuff that's been talked about with regards to our own houses, in terms of tweaking the thermostat down a bit and turning stuff over the wall and all that sort of stuff, which I think will definitely see some benefit.
So a carbon budget for some of the internal users is the kind of thing, isn't it?
As a penalty, you mean, for not basically if you don't perform?
But almost like a stretching target, a way of getting people to look at efficiency,
Yeah, we're looking to try and sort of create a competitive element. We feel that can be a benefit, but as part of the wider sort of climate change education piece we're looking to do in terms of online training, I think that's all part of education. I think a lot of people are pretty much up to speed with it now, really. You'd have to be pretty closeted not to understand there was a bigger problem. We're all going to see that in our own homes, aren't we, when our bills start hitting our doorsteps around about now. I know I've seen mine, and it's quite scary.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, Ryland, you still have your hand up. I'm not sure if that's a legacy hand or if you want to jump back into the conversation.
I just put it down. Sorry.
Oh, no problem at all. Okay, great. So does anybody else have any more questions? Anything they'd like to add? Any points they'd like to raise in reference to the report that was sent around? Anything you don't understand that you'd like to have a bit more information on? No, everybody's happy? Okay, Jeff, do you have anything else that you'd like to add or anything?
No, as I say, I will definitely come back, and I think I'll keep on drip feeding information back if that's all right when it comes to these meetings. I probably won't necessarily formally report, but I'll see how the meeting goes on Friday, this Friday. I keep on forgetting it is this Friday, which will set out a future timetable, and I'll try and get some sort of indications of when they will come back here and probably present in terms of what they're looking to do. And I think hopefully we'll see that we can develop this together in terms of indications of what this group think we should be doing. I think that would be very helpful for us as officers and in terms of developing our wider policy. So I think we've got quite a bit of work to do collectively, which is great.
Okay, brilliant. So I do believe under that item, there was a recommendation that we endorse as a CDC, the direction of travel, I suppose this new policy is taking, and make well, any further suggestions as to the future areas. But as you've said, we'll do that in time. So in terms of the CDC and us now endorsing that direction of travel, can I have somebody to propose that we're happy with to make that recommendation? So thank you, Ryland. And then if I could have someone to second, so Councillor Rice, perfect. And then if we're all in favour, I mean, just give me a wave, I suppose. There we go.
Great, thank you.
Brilliant. Okay. So that'll take us to item 5 then. So our next meeting is due to be held on the 20th of February at 5:30. So I imagine the ongoing work that is happening at the moment in the council chamber and the Gloucester room will be complete by then, I'm hoping. So then that will become a hybrid meeting again then at that point. So with the next item we have on the agenda then is the new sustainable food policy. So yeah, that was just a point for information. Jeremy, have I missed anything? Do I need to?
No, that's fine, Chair.
I haven't got you sitting next to me at the moment, so nudging
No.
me, telling me I've forgotten something.
No, that's fine. That's
No?
great. Thank you.
Okay, brilliant. Then I'm happy to close the meeting then.
Thank you very much, Chair.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good
Bye,
night.
everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Cheers now.